Hey, what's up everybody? BDF 44 coming at you another video. Another therapy session here because I'm just been made aware of Tyrell Terry of the NBA, who decided to retire after only been in the league for like 2 years because of he cited deep anxiety concerns. And I think it's relevant that I speak on it because of the type of experiences that I have with anxiety. And the fact of the matter is, I just made a therapy session about how deeply my anxiety was affecting me as of late. In fact, it was probably the very last one I made, if not that one, the one before, where I really just kind of opened up about my latest issues with it. So I was having a pretty bad week with that. And yesterday I made some pretty serious breakthroughs as it pertains to my short-term bout with it. And it started with being able to make that video and kind of help you guys, man. Help myself, of course, but hopefully by way of helping myself, maybe suggest some things to some other people that may work. So that's what I mean by that. But, listening to Tyrell's story, reading what he had to say, I feel relieved that he's been able to overcome whatever the biggest trigger is, which in his mind is his career. He had to get away from the game in order to overcome those anxiety. And in my mind, that's sad as I perceive it. But based on what it is that I feel, if I could find a way to overcome that anxiety or remove that antagonist, then that's something to be applauded, man. Because I can't seem to do so. Luckily for him, he's been able to find out what that thing is and remove it from his life. So that's kind of how I look at it from one angle. I think the more, I guess, a relatable a point of view, I guess, or opinion would be, I think that it's sad that he allowed his anxiety to cost him his career. But it's only that if you perceive the career to be something desirable. If for me or for someone who wants to be in the NBA, yeah, that would be your world. But once you get there and you experience what he experiences, and that's all you get, when he was describing his inability to sleep comfortably through the night, and the chest pains, and just the overall anxiousness and the heaviness that comes with it, I can relate to that in some different ways. You know what I mean? And I'm pretty sure his experience is too much to where it's not just as simple as him figuring it out. Maybe he's gotten to a point where this is the figuring it out. So I support his decision, and I just would love to see a solution that doesn't cost him something that would allow him to display his talent. A talent that doesn't allow for many people to ever have that experience, based on the fact that most don't harbor it. I think about a guy by the name of Royce O'Neal, who I've been hearing a lot about lately, hearing him speak. And Royce O'Neal, if I think I got his name wrong, Royce Wright, I believe it is, not Royce O'Neal, he plays for the Nets, but Royce Wright, who was someone who had mental health issues about 10, 12 years ago when he came into the league as a really talented rookie. Showed some extreme pop, but no team invested in him because of the fact that he couldn't fly. And I guess at the time, it just wasn't as necessary to accommodate people for mental health concerns. The era was that he's not doing what he's supposed to do to accommodate the team, and they've done enough for him. So as a result, they just couldn't go forward. No one would fight for him. So his career didn't come about, I think if this would have been right now, it's a little more mental health awareness, a little more identity awareness. I think it would have been a different environment for Royce White. But the fact of the matter was, at the time, people were still very much giving the finger to people with mental health illnesses as it pertains to them not holding themselves what appears to be accountable for accommodating the corporate structure in regards to their very own mental health concerns. So we've just come a long way in a very short time, and I'm glad that we have. So a guy like Terrell doesn't have to worry too much about hearing backlash in regards to his perspective on the NBA. I don't think he should be judged in any way or thought of as negative just because somebody else is desiring to get in the NBA and he's, giving his opportunity away. I don't think it's an opportunity he should want. It's definitely meant for somebody else. I think it's at the end of the day, there are many levels to what we always say about the lights being too bright, or it's just, the game being too much for some people. That varies. And for some people, that unfortunately is a very high level extreme. And in this case, that's what it is. Some people have real trouble with the free throw line, have real trouble with pressure. And then other people, it gets to the absolute max. Like, it ain't that, it's this. And so you just got to accept it. And for those who would want him on your team, it's like, until he overcomes that, he's probably not going to be able to help you very much. And it's the same thing we were saying in regards to Ben Simmons. I think Ben Simmons has done an amazing job at overcoming what he has to do. And he's still out here trying to fight it out through the back surgery and all these other things. People talking to him, calling him a cap artist in regards to his mental health and all that different stuff. Some of the same stuff that Royce had to go through. Hopefully with Ben having gone through that and Royce having gone through that, we can start seeing examples from which to study instead of applying blanketed, skepticism to these guys. Let these examples help educate us on the various looks that come with mental health concerns in the sports and the NBA. Some people really do have deep anxieties, and they may need some accommodating in order to accomplish the job, and it may be in your best interest to do so based on their skill set. But you have to be open-minded enough and accommodating enough and see it as a medical issue, just like a lot of other medical issues that you're willing to accommodate people for, and let them play. I heard on Kenny For Real today, it was mentioning something that was understood to be true by people who've had Ryan Anderson as their player, but it was understood that Ryan Anderson is colorblind and doesn't shoot well when the arena's red, and it's a lot of numbers that back that up. It was never even mentioned that he had a disadvantage in those games. If we were a bit more involved in how we're thinking, we would have made it so that he didn't have to play in those games. You know what I mean? So he wouldn't be at an inherited disadvantage based on what it is that he can't control. These type of things where it's just like, we can evolve. We really don't have to just look at people who are going through struggles and dismiss them. There are ways to mold the environment so that we can use them just as much as we use anybody else. We just got to become a bit more advanced in how we treat and how we help people who deal with these type of things. So I look at a guy like Terrell. If his only solution is to leave the NBA, that's the way. But the NBA should be able to provide him every solution to see to it that he doesn't have to leave the NBA in order to get what he needs. You know what I mean? He should be able to take some time away from the NBA, get his mental health concerns straightened out within the multi-billion-dollar corporation that is the NBA, and then from there be able to immerse himself back to health as an NBA employee and get back on the court 5, 6, 7 years, however long it is from now, or even if he doesn't get back on the court, have some type of job with the league that allows him to continue to express and display his own talent in the game. And that is what it is. And I look at a guy like Royce Wright and the things that he's talking about today. He's very much on his Christian militant, you know what I'm saying? And at this point, turning his back on anything the establishment that turned their back on him, like he's on a mission. And it's like, that is a good thing. And listening to him talk, I think he's here to help. I was listening to him on Jason Whitlock's podcast, and I just like the direction of their content. They're trying to take it to a place that allows people to open their minds to different aspects of what it is that we're looking at. And, I would, like I said in the past, I'm not one that always supported what I saw from Jason Whitlock, but what he's doing these days, giving guys like Royce Wright a platform to speak years later and show us exactly what came of that dismissal. You could clearly see it. It made it so that he didn't get a chance to have a path in basketball. He had to take his life and make it about something else. And it's like, maybe that's the way it was supposed to go for him. But the point was, he should have never been dismissed from basketball. He was too damn good. That's what's lost about all of this. Royce Wright was a very good basketball player. Royce Wright had the potential to be a starter in this league. Watching him play when he had good games, he was balling. And his career was robbed of him because people didn't perceive his mental health as worth investing in. I just know better than to dismiss people like that these days. Can't say I've always known that, but these days, this particular Laker team I've been following, they've taught me a new lesson in regards to giving up on people. And that's what it is. It's just you have to just let people progress. You got to invest in folks. You got to see them to their best selves, and you never know. You invest in somebody like that, maybe he turns into an all-star for you. Maybe he turns into a Hall of Famer for you. But you dismiss him and you never found out. And so, I don't believe that's what's going on with Terrell. But I look at the situation, I say, I wish the environment was a bit better so he didn't have to find himself so anxious while playing basketball professionally. You know what I mean? It's like the game itself is not an anxious game if you remove the business of basketball from a lot of people's situation, although a lot of guys thrive in that space and maybe even they need that space for their own mental health. Maybe they play better when the lights are bright and the people are watching, but for some, that pressure doesn't make the game any better for them. In fact, it makes it something that's not desirable at all. That's why I talk about in regards to my own team. We got to be careful about who we put in this uniform because this is the brightest of the bright lights in regards to this sport, and not everybody's going to thrive with the pressure that comes with putting on the colors. This is another example. So it's like he didn't play for our team, but you understand, like, this just gives you the levels of different mindsets that could be negatively affected by that type of pressure. So we just got to evolve, man. Got to evolve. We got to learn to listen to people and their mental health, testimony, and try to do what we can to get informed and become more helpful, I guess. I don't know what the word would be, but to kind of get the most out of everybody, I guess. So that's my little opinion on the situation, man. I had never heard of the player personally. And that's sad since he was drafted 2 years ago, and that was one of the drafts that I did a lot of homework on, but I just didn't recognize the name. But it's one of those things where it's like his career, he's only been in the league for 2 years. Maybe he'll come back around. Still young, maybe he'll come to a place where his mental health is great, and then he'll find solace in basketball or something again. But not everybody does, man. It just is what it is. I can tell you this, though. I can definitely relate to a lot of what he was saying in regards to his symptoms and the stuff that he was dealing with. You know what I mean? And I just tell him that, your walk is your walk. In my life, in my world, my perception is probably, it would probably be best for me to stay in the NBA if I were in this situation. Maybe it would be in my best interest to try to duke it out, so to speak. But that might not be what his mental health is needing. You see what I'm saying? And that's the fluidity of a mental health circumstance. Some people need to fight their way through it. Some people need to be able to just look themselves in the mirror and say, I overcame that anxiety. And it's not in their best interest to help themselves away from the problem. Other people, or other times, maybe the same people, it might be in their best interest to walk away from whatever it is that's disrupting their mental health. Maybe it's something that at this point, it doesn't get better for staying in it. It gets worse. Like myself, when I was working last year in my job, it was like every passing day, my mental health got worse and worse. My anxieties got higher. My unhappiness increased. It wasn't that I needed to stay there and duke it out. It was that I needed to hurry up and get away from that and reset my mindset. And so when you do the wrong thing, thinking you're working the right progressions, you could do damage. And so that's why I keep my mind open in regards to Terrell, as to where maybe like 10 years ago, my mindset immediately copy and paste would be, you can do it. Don't quit. Don't tell yourself you don't have, that you cannot do this. Your anxieties, you're giving them the fuel and the power. I think that's what a lot of non-mental health people are going to tell them to do, because that's how you have to approach your life in general, is persevere and overcome. But when you're talking about someone's mental health and how they perceive it, picture sitting in boiling water. You know what I'm saying? That is not something you want to sit in and just bull through, fam. No. And so that's how you have to approach it when you're someone who doesn't understand mental health stuff. It's like, it doesn't matter what your perception is of what it is they're going through. It's about where they started and how they perceive it. And if they're sitting in boiling water and you perceive them sitting in a space where they're overcoming, believe you me, it's not going to work out for them just because you perceive it that way. It just don't. This is not a progression of stairs that go upward. No, this is the brain. It could go sideways. It could go down and perceive itself to be doing better. You have to understand the fluidity of and the fullness and the complexity of someone's mindset as it pertains to dealing with these anxieties, especially if it comes from childhood trauma. Because in my experience, my consciousness and the ability to look at you and talk to you, that level of consciousness or that level of intent is not attached to the mental health itself. It's not. Once the mental health anxieties become a thing, the conversation changes based on where I'm feeling on the inside of myself and where I'm starting. You know what I mean? As it pertains to how much of this I've already felt I've been going through. So it's like, just when it comes to someone's mental health, man, you don't know what it is that they're perceiving. You don't know how they perceive what it is they're doing. For all you know, they're sitting in that space, and for them, it's holding their breath. So it's like, nah, you can't make them stay there. You can, but the effect might be the opposite of what it is that you want to see them go through. So it's just my own mental health has taught me that, man. Sitting in a space where you're thinking you're doing good and you end up doing worse, that taught me that. It actually taught me that. Now I know that copy and paste crap. No, some people they absolutely need to get away from what it is that's messing with them. And others need to persevere. Others need to sit in there and bull through it. I look at Russell Westbrook, and he's the example of the guy who did well when he just sat there and dealt with it. You know, and my perception of him last year was, man, he needs to get away from the situation. But no, with the personality that he had and what it is he was dealing with, as we could see, he did better when he just stayed in the situation. He did better when he just got used to it and stayed in the boiling water. It wasn't boiling for him. It got cooler the more he sat. So it's like, it just depends on what it is your brain is going through. It depends on what it is your scale is and what your brain tells you gets better for you. You know what I mean? It's like, it's tough, man. It's tough. But I do believe brains change, minds change, and suggestions really, really do help. And I think that the power of suggestion doesn't get enough credit when we're considering dealing with folks and their mental health. It's like, sometimes you can say a couple words to help somebody start the process of feeling like the water ain't boiling no more. But you got to be able to say the right things, push the right buttons to get them to perceive themselves as progressing differently when they do things differently. And it's like, it starts with them, but they have to be able to be aware of that. They have to be able to trigger that notion and to be able to start from there, as my mind perceives it to be. So, that's what I understand. It's just like, people who are not suffering from anything of the mental health sort, so to speak, you don't know where to derive from, man. You're going in blind. This is not something you can relate to because your mind doesn't function in such a way that disturbs you from doing what logically works for you. But if you could picture yourself not being able to consciously and effectively convince yourself to move, or convince yourself to stay in situations and perceive it as something you could deal with or what have you, whatever it may be, then it's just not going to have the effect that you're hoping to see within others as it pertains to your perception of their mental health. You're just not going to see what you want to see there. You're going to get frustrated. So that's just what it is, man. The brain is strange. However they perceive it is what it really is. And it's no copy and paste for this. It's none. Nothing really makes sense. They can see themselves a trillion different ways that you would never even be able to describe with your language. And you could be trying to work with them in a way that wouldn't even connect. And so that's the truth, man. That's why it's important to be careful when you're dealing with people off of drugs, and because you don't know what they're looking at when they see you. They may be speaking English, but you don't know what they perceive at all. And a lot of times, depending on what they off of, they might not know either. And working around a lot of mentally ill and drugged up people at Santa Monica Place taught me that. And with that job I told you I shouldn't have stayed at, staying there taught me some things that I'm keeping with me. So I took some good from that, even though I stayed in that boiling water. So it is what it is, man. The people who are dealing with the mental health issue and how they perceive what it is that they're dealing with, from within one of those minds, I could tell you their anxiety is a liar because they don't know what comes with that anxiety. So if they can get past that point, there's a new thing to discover Now, maybe it may be more boiling water. It may just be more of the same, but I've learned in my experience that sometimes, as I said, your mind changes once you realize that what it is that you're dealing with is not what it was, or you start to be able to see it for what it is as your anxiety. I think that's half the battle right there. I think a guy like Tyrell might be able to start the process of overcoming this situation by making this decision as he did. And maybe because he made it when he made it, he'll be able to come back around in a couple of years to see the game differently and maybe able to get back out there and do his thing. Because he is a young person. At the end of the day, there's still time. But he has to be able to make that decision. And retiring might be the trigger for his healing. And once he can perceive himself as taking this step toward retirement, then he can take the steps forward, being able to get some sleep, get this anxiety out of his belly, and then learn to love the game again. But he can't not take that step in order for him to get that foundation from which to start in his mind. So this may be a necessary step for him to believe that he wants to retire so that he can start the process of healing so he doesn't have to. But see, these are the type of things, it's like there's no way of knowing. Who knows if that's his truth or not? But these are the type of things that if you're dealing within your mind and you have these mental health anxiety issues, it's kind of stuff that may have to take place within yourself in order to override what it is that you're dealing with. I'd speak from experience on that one. So that's what it is, man. That's what it is. I want to send him encouragement, prayers, and good wishes, and as well as to you if you deal with anxiety or any level of mental health. I encourage you to don't allow yourself to sit in the boiling water if that's what it is, and certainly don't allow yourself to get out of it if that's not what it is. Find out if you're Westbrook or if you're Terrell, and you got to know who you are, and then do what's best for yourself. And don't allow the others, whoever they may be, including myself, to influence you not to take your mental health very seriously. Now, we all go through something. We all deal with different levels of our mental health, and sometimes you can get help for something and immediately go through something else that requires your attention. So it's a fluid situation, and trauma can occur even in non-traumatic events depending on how you perceive it and what your mindset is when you're going through it. So let's just keep our minds on that, and when we are spiritual people or prayerful people or careful to pray type people, I think that also is something that has worked for me, in having that spirituality be something that I can lean on, living right, feeling right in regards to those standards, help there for myself. And I think it may help for a lot of believers too. So that's what I want to say, man. That is my therapy session for today. Nothing really else. I want to encourage everybody to go back and check out that video so you'll see exactly how anxious I've been and how disturbed I've felt. But at the same time, it's like there's hope, and we're starting to mold the environment ourselves. Every conversation at a time, when we start helping people become more aware of their mental health and how best to care for people who have mental health concerns, and when they are in a space where they need to be held accountable for not doing enough, maybe that might be your job, depending. But at the end of the day, you just got to let people figure it out, because of whatever they perceive is what they're going through, man. That's what it is. BDF 44. I thank you all for watching.